Great job. Thank you all. Appreciate it. So that's a great point to consider in really talking about how are the dealerships of today going to start servicing those EV cars of tomorrow. And really, they're becoming the EV cars of today as well, right? And I think some of the key takeaway points from that is obviously adaptability, being able and being willing to take advantage of the infrastructure that's already set up with our service departments in place, but then being able to adapt them into a world where they can service and really help those EV customers. But also it's listening and understanding, right? Because our EV customers are not the same always as our ICE customers, right? So there is a little bit of differences in what they're looking for, what their buying points and trigger points are, and maybe even what's important to them. So again, great takeaways. I want to thank each and every member that came up to talk about that. We're going to go ahead and continue with our sessions. And what we're going to get into next is basically 3 ways to reduce advertising waste in 3 minutes. All right. So again, we talked about, throughout the time here, different ways that we can go into advertising, marketing. If you've been at any of our other sessions, we've spent time discussing that. And so now we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can go ahead and reduce advertising waste in 3 minutes. To help me do that, I'd like to welcome to our stage Tom Kerr, who is the president of Aventive Advertising. Tom, welcome.
All right. Thanks a lot, Earl.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Yep, yeah. Enjoy.
All right. So I know it says the title's 3 ways in 3 minutes. That's just to get the subject matter out. It's not really 3 minutes to actually do it. But so what we're gonna cover is 1, make sure you're sending the right signals to your digital, Google, social, so that way you're actually spending your sales dollars on sales advertising and not service advertising. 2, we're going to talk about how to take third-party traffic and turn it into your first-party audience. Really enhance what you're doing with your third parties and get more out of it. And lastly, make sure that you're measuring it, and then you modify it, and you're constantly meeting and making those decisions. So first, we're going to talk about sending the right signals. So not all conversions are equal. Let's start there. So if you got a partner who's telling you how cheap your VDPs are, you're probably getting screwed a little bit, all right? So, because you tell your partner, hey, I want my VDP to be 10 cents, whatever. Guess what? We're all guilty of it in the digital marketing. You tell us what you want, and we're gonna give it to you, right? So, we quit doing that a long time ago, because if you tell us you want cheap VDPs, we're gonna give you cheap VDPs, and then you're not gonna fire us. But at the end of the day, you need to measure quality VDPs. What are they doing on that? And then you got to take those signals, send them back to Google, and you got to find more customers like that out there. So, but again, when you set it up, this is a little video just kind of demonstrating the proper way to set up tagging, setting up your events. So what you need to do is you got to give values to these conversions, your form fills, your phone calls. If you're not using DNI, if you don't have a partner who's going to send those call signals for sales, or if you have a partner who is like putting your call extension on your brand name or dealer name near me, they're robbing you. Because guess what? If they're putting your name in, your Google My Business has that phone number. You shouldn't be paying for that. And that's a service call. That's not a sales call, I promise you. So, but the thing is you also have to put events onto your VDPs. Are they looking at photos? Are they looking at your Carfax report? Are they watching videos? Are they looking more in details? That's a valuable shopper. And then you want to use that, utilize Google's AI, and then send that signal back to Google so they go out and find more partners. Another thing I would really encourage is if your partner has their own proprietary software, get the raw data. Make sure that they open up your analytics. Make sure they share those analytics with you. Make sure that you understand where every single dollar is going, because somebody's probably stuffing a fee somewhere on you. It's very, very important. You need to know, you need transparency. I'm all for software, but you also have to have analytics to the transparent, raw, third-party, objective opinion of Google. So what we're gonna look at, so this is an opportunity where you really find out what traffic matters. Again, we go back to people who are sending you tons of VDPs from your dynamic social search. Well, that click goes straight to the VDP. What is that customer doing when they get there? So you'll see this is some data from December 21 to February 22. And this is referral traffic, organic traffic, social traffic, and paid traffic. So this is set up with hard analytics. And one of the things, when you set your analytics up right and you start sending signals, I promise you, you can reduce your SEM budget. I promise you, if it's done right. So what we're really finding is, getting your inventory out in social is a great spot. Like people, if you're sending the right signals to Facebook and Instagram and you're getting people to your website, they are going to engage with that inventory if it's set up right. So number 2, you guys, we all spend a lot of money with third parties. We need to collect that traffic and turn it into first-party data. And then you build your audiences off of that traffic when you get access to it. So that way, because what I just showed you is referral traffic is extremely engaged traffic. I know people are always looking at leads or things like that. I don't view your third parties as a lead provider. If you get leads, great, but it's important. It's like TV advertising. It gets your inventory in front of consumers. So again, an average consumer uses 3 third parties when searching for a vehicle. 57,500,000 searches done. It represents 65% of all vehicle searches done in the United States. So it's important that you capitalize on this material. So then, when you collect this material, you need to know the year, make, model, what price, what region they're searching for, and then get it loaded into an intelligent delivery system that will then put that inventory out in front of your consumer. So after you've built the profile, then it should match to your inventory. So that way now you're sending the right vehicles to the consumer through your social media platforms, your social media platform. And then that traffic should go to your website, not someone else's, not another third party. You guys need to enhance your third parties. Those are great partnerships, great places to be. I recommend it, but you need to leverage that more and make more money with it. Can I get water? So next, measure and modify. Everybody knows this quote from Henry Ford. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. We've all heard it. Doesn't have to be that way anymore. Right now, we should have the advanced analytics, know exactly what we're checking, and be able to know what half works. Then you measure, you modify. Thank you very much. So then you measure, you modify, and then you spend more on what's working. So, and again, it all starts with what we started with, advanced analytics. So, then what is the other problem we have? Dashboards. Every one of us has a dashboard. Get a login for that dashboard, log in for that dashboard. Now learn how to use that one, learn how to use this one. Then you got to interpret what's working. So you need to find a system that easily tracks the performance across not just your dealership, and if you're a dealer group, you should be able to roll all this up and see all your data in one spot. And I'm not talking just sales, your service, your owner retention programs, your email marketing, your display. Everything should be going here and connected to your DMS. How much money are we making on that? What is the actual ROI? So that way we can then really put a dollar, and that's how we measure and modify, because then you know how much you're actually getting from your actual advertising spend. This will allow you to hold everybody accountable. And if it's all in one place, guess what? You'll use it. Instead of teaching everybody to have to use this dashboard, that dashboard, we all hate it, and we know it. I mean, think about if you have to have a salesman, it has more than one dashboard. I mean, we're lucky to use CRMs, right? So this is, and analyzing data, when it comes to advertising, we know as marketers, let's face it, as a car retailer, about 1% of what you really have to do is advertising. You guys have a lot more important things to do, and you need a partner who will really handle that. But it's important for you to inspect what you expect. And by having a single dashboard that allows you to log in and be able to manage that is what's going to help you. So I knew I was going to be quick, but the thing is, it was supposed to be three ways to stop wasting advertising dollars in 3 minutes. So obviously it's easy to cover this material, but setting it up, analytics and doing those type of things appropriately takes, one, talented people, and two, takes a lot of time, because you got to figure out what is important to you. What's an important conversion to you? And it's not just phone calls and email and form submissions and chats. It's people who are engaging, because you got to fill that funnel every day. And if you stop at any point, and you go back to like traditional advertising, and you stop advertising for a few days or a few months, well, that pool starts to empty. Well, digital marketing is the exact same way. You stop sending those signals, and especially with the long buying cycle that we're dealing with now. People, you got to keep finding more people who will eventually fill out that form, chat with you, or give you a phone call. So you want to go ahead and move to, we've got time for questions, obviously, so.
So one of the things that I always learn, and I try to make it easy on them, because they're in the living room, they're comfortable, they hate asking questions. So what we'll do is we'll spend some time and we'll ask some of the questions that maybe they want to know, right, that they don't want to ask, right? And if anybody has questions, obviously you're more than welcome to ask questions. But for whatever reason, whenever somebody says, does anybody have questions, you guys all do this. It's like that stare down, right? So let me ask you, one of the big things, right? Because we've been talking a lot about, obviously we just came out of this successful year, and a lot of dealers are managing a success level that they haven't experienced before, okay? And so now I do want to maybe invest and do more with, some of my advertising. Getting started, it can be overwhelming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a phenomenal question, because what we're doing and what we're encouraging everybody right now is the time to reinvent yourself. Right now is the time to try something you haven't tried before, because we are doing well. And it gives you time. It gives you time to make mistakes. It gives you time to get better. It gives you time to ask questions, because right now you're not going to mess up that bad, right? Like, people are still going to buy what we have on the lot. So right now is, just ask your partner, hey, what are my events that I have set up in the analytics? How are you getting me more qualified shoppers? What are you measuring what happens on my VDP? Just start asking those type of questions, and then you'll find out whether or not, that VDP, it might even have a high bounce rate. I don't care about bounce rate. If that customer spends a lot of time on the car, I don't care if that's the only page. But right now is the time to reinvent yourself. Right now, like, even if you're creatively, if you were thinking about maybe a new brand or something, now's the time. Don't wait when it comes back and inventory gets back, and then you got the guy across the street that's just racing to the bottom on the price, and then you end up in the price war again. Do it now.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest takeaway that we've seen over these last couple of days, and what we've been talking about is that you can have all the cars or no cars. It's really about the impact and what you have with the audience that you're reaching, right? Because that is the most imperative, is being able to have out there what you want to have out there, but do it in a way to where you're managing and you're marketing, but then also knowing if it's effective or working. So what are some ways with just practical applications? If I'm somebody that says, you know what, I don't know it, I don't understand it, I don't even know where to begin, where would you say that would be kind of like ground floor for someone like that?
First, you start with your marketing partner. And if you're in-house or something like that, just reach out to your website provider. Start there. Maybe they have a Google relationship. You can get some help. They definitely have a relationship. Make sure that they can inspect it for you. But if you have a marketing partner, you start there. If you don't have a marketing partner, and you do it in-house, you need to start with your website provider, look at your analytics, see how many events, goals you have set up, and that's the best place. That would be where I would start asking questions to start.
Absolutely. And with the one dashboard scenario that you mentioned up, is that something that can be, because obviously one of the things we have is like the mega group, the 20 group that's now, I have multiple stores, and I have, obviously multiple things that are coming at me that I have to budget and account for. With having that one dashboard, how does that look in maybe a not only ownership, but also in a multi-brand kind of scenario?
So you need something in that case where it will roll up, so that way when you have to look at a total, like you're looking at your total spend,
right?
You can look at it across the group, like, okay, well, maybe in that group has 6 different SEM providers, right?
Yeah.
And then you want to look at, you can roll it up and then see what you're getting on your ROI from that SEM, and then you can actually measure which one of your providers is doing the best job in a very quick look. But the key to actually knowing is making sure that you have universal analytics set up the exact same way for every dealer. And that gets tricky because all websites send different events. So you have to have somebody that can do custom events to make your view into your dashboard equal, apples to apples. So and that takes work, that takes time, and you need somebody that has experience and knows how to do it. So
yeah, and absolutely, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that's the other takeaway from this is that it is a time investment, right? This is not something that you're going to walk into and just flip a switch, or what was it back in the 80s or 90s, the clap on, clap off. It's not that simple, right?
No.
It is going to require that time and then also investigating to know, and like you said, looking at it so that I'm not getting cross data, that maybe I've got this set here, but this one's over here, and now they're not matching up and I'm lost.
And the other point that I want to, that you just brought up, another great point, is not only that, you have to continuously analyze it because events change. Your digital retailer is constantly evolving, your website's constantly evolving. So those events change. So you need somebody that will know when an event's change, so that way the tracking doesn't get lost.
Absolutely. So give it to me from this perspective. Let's say I'm here, and obviously, like we've talked about before, there's tons of things going on, and I think we've got your booth number up there. I'm fresh. I'm coming in new. I'm coming to your booth. What am I expecting, or what is it that I'm coming to you for? Let's just give them that side of it. When I walk into your booth, what should I expect?
Well, one, you're going to expect everything we just went over, but so we're going to take a look at your website, and hopefully you have your analytics account available that you can take a look and show you quickly, see which buttons on your website are actually tagged appropriately, see which and if there's actually tagging set up for scrolling pictures, watching video, or even starting or clicking on a call to action but not submitting the form, because you want to make sure that you don't. That a lot of times those events are set up like a click on a button.
Yes.
They might submit it as, oh, that was a lead form, but it's just a start of a form. What you really need to know is, what's that form completion rate look like? So that's where it's gonna start, looking at your website, seeing what analytics or events are already started and what will trigger it. Because if you don't start there, if you don't start with the setup, then you're just gonna continue to waste money.
Absolutely, and I think sometimes that can be a difficult thing, especially with setup, because there are instances where, let's say maybe I hired or contracted someone to help get me up and running or set things up, or maybe the person that I had in-house was no longer in-house, and maybe I don't have that insight of what's going on like I should. So having someone that's able to then analyze and tell me like, oh, were you aware of this? And I think that's the big takeaway of everything that we know. It's having insight or being willing to at least investigate so that we can get better and can start performing at the level we want.
And that's the other part. The other thing I'll encourage you is, just because if you find something wrong, that it needs to be a collaboration. It can't be a situation, because you don't want people to get defensive and say, oh, that's not my fault. Like, you might have a social provider and you have an SEM provider, and everybody just starts going that way. And then you got to get everybody on the same team and listen, hey, we're not here to point fingers. We're just here to get better. And this is what I want. Yeah. So, and once you need to make sure that you have a partner that can have those type of conversations and not take things so defensively. So,
absolutely. Yeah, you have to have the willingness to be coachable, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise, we're both failing, and that's a key element. So, with looking at the one dashboard setup and some of the other key elements that you mentioned, and getting this fixed in 3 minutes, right? And obviously, like we talked about, it takes a little longer than 3 minutes, but really, what's a success story that you've seen where maybe somebody didn't have some of the insight or that we've experienced?
This might seem minor, but you can do true A/B testing on what your buttons actually say. Okay. For example, we figured out that the get e-price or start buying process, or those don't perform as well as is like, estimate payments or build payment options. Those actually perform better in most cases, because when you start down and you start telling somebody buy now or start buying process, in their mind, they think, oh, I'm going to be committed here.
Yes, absolutely.
And so by softening that and allowing them to feel more like, oh, I'm only exploring. I know it escaped my mind there for a minute. As a matter of fact, explore payment options was one of our dealer groups, the #1 call to action that actually started engaging our digital retailing tool.
Okay, and you're absolutely correct. I think, and we've all been a victim to that, right? I mean, we are in Las Vegas, and we don't intend to go out and gamble, but sometimes the machine or whatever the case might be is just like, oh yeah, just try $1, and then next thing you know, you've been there for 2 hours, right? And that's one reason I do not gamble.
Yeah.
I hate to lose.
Yeah, and that was all done from A/B testing and having appropriate analytics set up, and we were able to determine that more people with Explore payment options actually went through the process than start buying process.
So a lot of the application is having the understanding of how our consumers are relating to the information we're providing. Because like you mentioned, a buy now seems like I'm kind of apprehensive. I don't want to make that commitment yet, but I do want the information.
Right.
And that's what I think a lot of times, especially since post-pandemic, we've been seeing that a lot of our consumers are seeking more information. And that's kind of the first step to buying, is that information seeking, them being curious. But if you're hitting them right off the head with buy it now, a lot of the times we're not, apt to respond to that. I mean, that's the reason even when we go to the grocery store, they've got that little aisle that before you check out, like, oh yeah, by the way, do you want this candy bar? You're like, I didn't really want a candy bar, but it's here, I'm here. And so I think that's a great point, is to be able to know, hey, you just can't arbitrarily put up buttons and hope that they work. You've got to know what they're intended for and how people are receiving them.
Yep.
So that's great. Any other big tips or takeaways?
No.
I always call it my back pocket. So anything for the audience that you want them to put in their back pocket?
Well, just the last thing is really enhance your third parties. Like, make sure that you get access and figure out how are you going to, when somebody's looking for a used Ford F-150, make sure that you know how, but they've never been to your website. Make sure you're getting your inventory now in front of them on their social and their Google display. That is probably one of the biggest game changers. It's available. You can do it. And if anybody wants to learn more, I can show you how at 1341W. So, all right.
Just that simple. Come
right,
check
man.
them out.
Thank
you
you
so much. Appreciate your time. Absolutely, guys. One more time, round of applause. There we go.
Thanks.
It's part of the house rules. Thank you so much. So one of the things that we are going to continue to always talk about is